Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Safe and Healthy Schools Commission meeting of Monday, March 7th, 2022. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 2:03 p.m. Sorry, my first time with a gavel, you guys. Got a little excited there. America, can you please do roll call?
Okay. Darren Balaam let us know he would not be able to be present today. Ivy Batmall.
Here.
Scott Benton.
I'm here.
Lorraine Benuto.
Here.
Charlene Bybee.
Here.
Liz Flores.
Here.
Jessica Gogachia is not able to be here today. Amber Joyner. Okay. Rhonda Lawrence. Yeah, it will not be able to be here. Leanne Larson McCauley.
Here.
Peg Samples will not be able to be here. And Natalie Sanchez. Roll call has been taken.
Thank you, America. I'd like to open the floor up to any public comment. Oh, I thought before everything. Okay. All right, then we'll move to 2.01 and approval of the minutes from February 7th, 2022, meeting of the Safe and Healthy Schools Commission. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve the agenda as presented. This, Councilwoman Bybee. Minutes, I'm sorry. I'm thinking two things.
And is there a second?
I second.
All in favor, please say. Oh, is there public comment?
No, there is not.
Thank you, America. She did try to tell me. So, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstentions? All right, thank you. 2.02, discussion of COVID mitigation strategies in Washoe County School District based on Nevada's Governor's Directive 052 and its impact on Washoe County School District students, athletics, and activities. This is for information and discussion only. Gentlemen, I'll have you introduce yourselves, please.
Hello, my name is Tristan McElhaney. I'm the Director of Student Behavior and Student Supports for the school district. With some information for you guys about 052 and how it affects athletics and activities. So as we all know, Directive 048 had Section 7, which said that the NIAA would be coming up with a plan for mitigation and testing. And as a result of that, we set up a regular testing and our mitigation efforts through athletics. As of the 27th of February, that guidance has expired. And so now everything falls under 052. And since there's no longer a carve out for masking with COVID for athletics and activities, it all falls to our default plan that's been submitted to the health department, our health district, and it has been accepted by them, and the board will be voting on it tomorrow night. As it pertains to athletics and activities, if it's adopted as by the board, it does not require masks for participation in athletics or activities, and COVID testing would be for groups that are going to venues where testing is required, but that would be the extent of it.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? All right, thank you, Mr. McElhaney. It's going to be a quick meeting. 2.03, discussion and presentation on child assault prevention in the Washoe County School District and measures being taken to teach children about stranger danger, signs of abuse, and how and where to report personal experiences for information and discussion only. And I'd like to welcome Catherine Loudon, Counseling Coordinator. And you're going to introduce our speakers. Thank you, Catherine.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here today and to present to you the Executive Director of Child Assault Prevention, Rebecca LeBeau. For the record, I'm the coordinator of counseling and social work for Washoe County School District. And also to the left of Rebecca, we have Tracy Sergioli, who is one of our Washoe County School District licensed clinical social workers. And she's going to be presenting a little bit further in the presentation with me on Project Aware. But as we were all talking with one another, I have known Rebecca LeBeau for over 30 years since I was a brand new counselor. And we found out that Tracy Sergioli also worked for and helped to volunteer for child assault prevention. And so we're going to turn it over to Rebecca in a minute to share a little bit about how important this program is and all the great things that they do. But there's a song that we teach students as a part of child assault prevention, and all of us know it and know it by heart, and it's so essential. And so we're going to start out with the song because it may sound familiar to those of you who are parents, but we know how important this song is to our kids and how much fun we've had delivering this song to students in our Washoe County schools for decades. Okay, so Rebecca, we'll let you start. You want to turn on your microphones?
Is that
Yep,
on?
that's it. And we will start with that, and then I will go immediately from that to Rebecca so she can share with you a little bit about child assault prevention.
And feel free to join along. I probably taught some of you when you were kids. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm
Safe, strong, and free. I'm safe, strong, and free. Every day and every way, I'm safe, strong, and free.
What a beautiful way to start your presentation. Thank you, Rebecca.
You are welcome. Well, shall I? All right, I'm going to jump right in. I'm Rebecca LeBeau, and I'm the Director of Child Assault Prevention. And I've been with this agency since 1997. The agency has actually existed since 1984. And I'll just take you a little bit back in history. During the 80s, Reno experienced a huge growth. The MGM, for those of you that still remember the MGM, it is now the Grand Sierra Resort. It came to our community. We had many businesses come to our community, so much growth, the development of Spanish Springs. With all these people and families came an escalated amount of reports of child abuse. And so we wanted to figure a way to work with the kids to give them a heads up about what child abuse and assault really was. So with seed money from the City of Sparks and money from the Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Task Force, they brought in a team of people from what was then called Women Against Rape. It is now called the International Center for Assault Prevention, and they sent a training team, and we started the first child assault prevention program. And we've been here ever since. So that's a long time, and we've evolved and had some changes over the years, but we have a relationship with our school district that has allowed us to work cohesively together for many, many years. And I couldn't ask for better. And when I use the word relationship and the word communication, that is exactly what our program is all about. We want to reach out to our children and teach them that communication is essential to their health and their safety. We want them to know they have helpers and advocates that will watch out for them. But the only way to make that happen is to talk about their issues. And we want them to know it's okay. It's okay to get help when they need it. So when we open our workshop presentation, we started by teaching them about the rights to be safe, strong, and free. Safe, to have safe people, safe places, And if they don't feel safe, we want them to identify at least 3 helpers that they could go to for help. If one is too busy, they've got 2 more. And if one doesn't understand, they've got another one. The most important thing is seek out that helper and talk to them about your issues. And we want them to know there's helpers at school, and right there in the classroom, there's a teacher, and right there is a counselor, and there's a school nurse, there's a principal, there's a vice principal, there's social workers, there's people at school that can help them. And then we want them to know there's people at home, their moms, their dads, grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles. Look at their world. They have people they can go to for help. And then we want them to put up 3 fingers. And if any child can't identify 3 helpers, then we help them. We know they're struggling, and maybe they need somebody to just say, well, let's talk about who could be your individual helper. All right, we talk about being safe, strong, and free. Strong in the sense to stand up for yourself. Strong in the sense to make decisions that affect you, and the freedom to act on those decisions. We're trying to plant seeds for the rest of their life, that the decisions that they make affect their health and well-being. Like choosing friends. Do you want a safe friend, a mean friend? Who's going to assure how much fun you're going to have? So then we talk to them about who in their world might take those rights to be safe, strong, and free away. And the first is a bully. Bullies are everywhere, and we want them to know that it's okay to stand up for yourself. We role play. We role play child-on-child behavior with an aggressive child against a passive child, so they can see and kind of get the emotions of what that looks like. And when they see that a passive child standing up to an aggressive child doesn't always work, we ask them, well, what should the passive child do? And they say, well, they need to be louder, stronger, braver. So then we make the passive child an aggressive child. And they're like, no, we didn't mean that. We meant just be brave. Don't become a bully too. And they think it was their idea. They don't know we wrote it that way. So we then role play assertive child with assertive child. And they see the strength in using your words and standing up for yourself. And then we take it a little further to role play with other students from the classroom and bring them up to do this role play, to stand up and be upstanders and good bystanders and make sure that their friend gets the help that they need. Now at the 2nd grade level, we're talking about kids on the playground that are taking away toys. The 4th grade level, we're talking about a little bit of diversity. Our assertive child is in a wheelchair. And so we try to bring in a little diversity situation because kids need to realize that kids that have issues are picked on a lot, and it's not okay. All right, then we want the children to realize that we label people. We call people bullies, and maybe they don't want to wear that label. So how can we invite somebody who might be acting over aggressively to not do that anymore? And we role play a situation where the child who is now an assertive child says, you know what, I don't want to give you my ball, but how about we go over there and play with those kids? It looks like it'd be a lot of fun. And it gives the opportunity for somebody who had been acting with bullying behavior to say, that does look like fun. I'm going to give it a try. And so a little bit of a conflict resolution piece, just to invite children to learn how to get along. And we say it right after that. Those two might not get to be friends. They have to work at it. Friendship takes work. But they probably could at least learn to be nice to each other. All right, so the next section we talk about strangers. Stranger danger is something that disappeared almost for a while until here comes the computers, the internet, the cell phones. Oh my goodness, when we started this program, we didn't have any of those things. And so learning about all these new technological things that come down the pike that now present dangers to our children. So we work with the children on identifying what a stranger is. Can you tell if a stranger is safe or unsafe by the way they look? And you can't. So again, instead of putting a label on that anybody you don't know is unsafe, what we say is you can't tell. So since you can't tell, don't go away alone with somebody you don't know. Make sure you think about your safety first. If somebody in a car comes over to you and says, hey, I've lost my dog. Here's a picture. Can you jump in and help me find my dog? Now, that person might look wonderful, might sound wonderful, but the thing is you don't know them, so you don't know if they're wonderful or not, so don't go. Now, I want to just take everybody back to another generation when children were taught, do as you're told. Children should be seen and not heard. Always be polite to older people. Remember your magic words. All right, so I tested my own program on my kids, and I said, so, all right, a stranger comes up and says, hey, little girl, come here. I've got some candy. What do you say? She goes, well, first I say please, and then I say thank you. And I'm like, oh, I have failed. But it's true. We need to remember to teach children to think safety first. They might want that candy, but if they don't know that person, it's not safe. So we focus on some of the most used tricks strangers would use on children. Authority, bribery, acting friendly, flattery, the most common scenarios. And we role play these tricks with the children so they can get to kind of hear what they sound like. And we show them packets of pictures of people that are just out of magazines. Nobody knows who they are. And because they're strangers to us, we can't tell if they're safe or unsafe. The newest thing I've done with that section is after we talk about using some safety techniques to get yourself to safety, talking with your adult helpers, we take the facilitator that portrays our stranger and we remove that person from the room and have the children do an identification exercise to tell us, what did that person look like? In so many of the biggest abduction cases, there have been witnesses, but the recall value of the children, they can't remember. So we think this is super important for kids. Learn to identify your surroundings. See if you can identify anything about that stranger. And I've stopped portraying the stranger because now, as I get older, children are so unkind. I've decided that, yeah, we'll let the younger ones do the stranger part. But we want them to also know strangers exist on the internet, on the computers. They're strangers we can't see, and they might pretend to be somebody we know. And always remember, if anybody presents a situation over your phone or your computer that makes you feel uncomfortable, talk to one of your adult helpers. If it's at school, your teacher, your counselors. At home, your moms, your dads. Get attention to that and talk about what's making you feel uncomfortable. And if someone on the computer says, meet me over here, or why don't we get together, is that person safe or unsafe? And the kids always say, well, I don't know, I can't see them. Exactly the perfect answer. We really know that talking about safe, unsafe, and secret touches is confusing for children. They want to be loved, they want to be understood, and sometimes this is a confusing section in our workshop. So we treat it very gently, and we role play very carefully, because we want everybody to know that if something makes them feel uncomfortable, that's an uh-oh feeling. We call it an uh-oh feeling. It might be your body's awareness saying, this just doesn't feel right to me. And if they get that feeling with somebody and they don't want to hug or kiss them, They don't want to touch them or sit close to them. They need to be aware of that and maybe talk with one of their helpers about their feelings. Now, I had a grandmother that was 6'2", and when she hugged me, I thought I was going to die. And I wasn't comfortable. And when I finally told my parents that I'm uncomfortable, they said to my grandmother's name was Harriet, they just said, you know, Grandma Harriet, she's really little and you're really big to her. You need to realize it scares her. Maybe we could do a little gentle holding hands or something softer until she's comfortable. And that did the trick. So we want children to know that hugs and kisses are okay. They're gifts from our heart for people that we love and care for. But if they're forced or bribed or tricked, then maybe that's something that gives you that uh-oh feeling, and you need to talk with a helper. So in a nutshell, that is the gist of our program. And we role play all of these things so that children can feel the emotion of what that means. And when they feel the emotion, we know they need to process it. We don't leave them with that inside. We process that with them, answer their questions, draw them into a conversation and communication, and tell them that feeling uncomfortable is a reason to get help. Talk to one of your helpers. And we encourage that because if nobody knows you're uncomfortable, they're not going to know. And the one way to make that feeling go away is to talk about it. So that's what we do. We talk a lot. I talk a lot. I know that. I'm probably over my time, but I think the program has been a success for kids. And overall, we measure it. I am the statistic queen, and I measure the heat of the room, the weather of the day, how many boys, girls, everything. And then 90 days after our presentation, I go back and test the children to see if they remember our program. If they don't remember the safety issues and the rules and the information we give them, then how are they going to use it if a situation presents itself? So my target goals are that kids remember 80% of our workshop content, that 40% or more actually say they have used our safety content, and that 12% overall of the children we speak to actually go to get help from their teachers or their school counselors. 8% overall have a disclosure that actually results in a report to Child Protective Services. And so this, you know, our circumstances change year to year. We've just come through COVID. We've just come through a lot of different things. We've had, you know, recessions. We've had the housing bubble. But these stats stay consistent. And if it were higher, if more kids came, I would be super concerned about our community. What we want to do is make sure there's enough services in place that parents, families, kids are getting the services they need to help us all with keeping those child abuse situations down. But the kids that need our help, we want to make sure we're there and that we listen. We know that if we freak out, if they tell us something, they might not ever talk to us again. We have to go calmly and concerned so that they know we're there to help them. And they do know that. They do know that. And I did a little unauthorized test at a high school. I just went in. We give the kids a safe, strong, and free pencil at the end of our workshop, a little gold pencil that says safe, strong, and free on it. And I went into I got permission to go into a classroom at McQueen, and I just held up this pencil and I said, did anybody get one of those? And when I did, and I said, all right. They remembered they might not have remembered all the safety information, but they sure remembered those pencils. So our goal is to keep those pencils coming so the kids remember. But that is our presentation, and I thank you so much for allowing me to speak today.
And so before I open it up to Rebecca for some questions, I want you to know that already in Washoe County School District, over 6,000 students have received the Child Assault Prevention Program. This is something that Rebecca works very diligently together with multiple partners and her board of directors to bring. Many of the board of directors from Child Assault Prevention are people that you probably know in the community that have worked in counseling and worked with social work and worked in business and at our university level. And as commissioners, you would be welcome to come and watch a presentation, because as much as it sounds interesting to hear about the content, there is no possible way to describe what it's like in a classroom until you go there and watch. And we recently had people from Renown go and watch, and they were so amazed by the program. So I would strongly encourage commissioners to take a look at child assault prevention, because it really is something that's so important for our kids, for bullying, for addressing strangers and those known adults, and for our child abuse prevention efforts in Washoe County School District.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And Rebecca, thank you for your decades of such important work. So I open it up to the commissioners for questions. Commissioner Bybee.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I knew my boys are like 37 and 34, and so I know about the program because it has been around a while. My kids went through it. I guess what I was curious about through all these years of where you started and where we are now, in recent times, all of a sudden the increased dangers of, like you said, the internet, and but really, I think about, especially recently, the human trafficking side of it. And so really that's like the extreme of your stranger danger. But because that danger is there to the kids through the internet or through walking home from school, or have you shifted at all, you know, how you prepare kids for that so that they really, you know, you've got 3 people you're supposed to go to. Well, if you're walking home from school, what do you do, and what action can you take? Because I mean, it's a serious issue, and I would not have believed only a few years ago when we talked about human trafficking and sex trafficking, and I'm like, oh, Reno and Sparks, oh, we don't have a problem. That's in Chicago, that's in New York, that's in the big cities, having no idea that we're on the I-80 corridor and that we have, the numbers are really frightening. And so I was kind of curious, as dangers, unfortunately, present themselves that are much more escalated than maybe what my boys, or Shirley when I was growing up, how have you made changes to the program, or how do you address that to really make the kids prepared for worst case scenarios?
Right. That's an excellent question. And how we present that, realizing that it's a scary situation, we try to emphasize, think safety first. If you have to walk home, do you have to walk home alone? Can you walk home with other children? Do you have a route to walk home? We tell children, stay at least 3 giant steps away from anybody you don't know. And if somebody starts to get close to you and you don't know them, you keep yourself away. If you have to run, run. Make sure you work out with your parents a safety route to get home. And if you have to walk alone, stick to that route. Stick to that route, and if anybody that you don't know approaches you, you don't have to be disrespectful. You just don't engage and keep yourself moving along. If somebody grabs you, you don't have to be nice and you don't have to be polite. Your life is in danger. You throw rocks in their face. You kick, you scream, you say, help me, help me. This is a stranger. This is not my mom. This is not my dad. And children will say, well, we've been taught to yell fire, or we've been We've been taught that we have to go with them. And I say, don't yell fire, because people will start looking around for smoke. You want eyes on you. And you tell somebody, this is not okay. I'm in trouble. Help me. And you can swing your backpack. Don't stop to get your phone to try to call 911. Get yourself out of there. And if you can surprise your wily, pull back pinkies, pinch under the arm, poke them in the eye, kick them in the shins. But if you get that opportunity to get away, don't stick around and try to beat this person up. Surprise them. Get yourself to safety. Get yourself somewhere where you can get the help you need. And this always starts well, what if what if this person says they know my dad? And I said, well, they might know your dad, but do you know them? If you don't know them, that person is a stranger to you. Don't go with them. And we've had conversation about code words, secret passwords, and all these things. And I say, if you're feeling in danger, especially if somebody comes at school and is waiting for you outside and says, your dad got hurt on the job today and he sent me to come get you, and you're saying, well, what's my code? What's my password? That gives that person that you don't know an opportunity to say, shut up, kid, get in my car. Don't engage. Get back into the school. There are people who are assigned safety. They are people that your parents have given permission. And if your dad got hurt or your mom got hurt, I know you'd be terrified. You'd be very upset. But don't go with that person. Get back into the office and ask questions. It could be another child that they try to take too. So draw attention to it. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you,
And
Rebecca.
so, Commissioner Bybee, to just elaborate a little bit on that from the Washoe County School District perspective. So child assault prevention does teach about flattery and about several of those tricks and about secrets, and lays a foundation for what's the difference between a good and a bad secret. And it goes with some of our other programming that we have at the elementary level for Better Safe Than Sorry. But then in addition to that, at the district level, to address this issue of human trafficking, we have several collaborative partners. We make sure that we have counseling and social work representatives on our local boards for human trafficking and attending all of those opportunities to collaborate and collaborating with others as well. So this piece fits in with several other things that we have in place with other agencies and groups. So it kind of really lays a foundation for that. So I don't know if anyone has any other questions for Rebecca, but please go watch a presentation. It really, until you see it, it's amazing to see. So
Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to 2.04, and Catherine gets to stay at the podium. This is discussion of Project Aware and mental health stigma and mental health literacy for information and discussion only. It says presented by Vice Chair, but since I am chairing the meeting today, I'm going to turn it over to some wonderful team members from the Office of Suicide Prevention and Project Aware to present after Catherine and Tracy are done with their piece.
Thank you so much for that. We actually have a PowerPoint because we want to make sure we have all of these things in place. For the record, again, my name is Catherine Loudon, and thank you so much for having us here today. To my left is licensed clinical social worker Tracy Sergioli. Tracy is a mental health professional for Washoe County School District and a part of Project Aware. She works with Eric Olson. Many of you are very familiar with Eric, who has a background also in social work. It is National School Social Work Week, and we are just bursting with pride, and it is time for our social workers to shine. So we're including them in everything. And for the rest of you that are social workers, it's also National Social Work Month, but we are celebrating our school social workers. And in the background here also, we have our Washoe County School District Mental Health Administrator, Dr. Elizabeth Sexton, because when we have a presentation on mental health and we're talking about Tier 3 and other levels, sometimes, especially with this particular specialized group, you might have some questions that would need Betsy's expertise. So I'm going to start. I guess I'll just, when it's time to turn slides, I'll let America know or Paul know. But Project Aware, I'm going to give an overview and then turn it over to Tracy after a few slides. Project Aware stands for Advocacy, Wellness, and Resiliency in Education. And it is part of a SAMHSA, or Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, grant opportunity that we have in collaboration with the Nevada Department of Education, who SAMHSA had set aside this funding that could be coordinated at the state level to flow through to districts to address mental health literacy, training, and gaps in our mental health care overall. We have about $500,000 just in our Washoe County part per year, each of 5 years. And we have other partner districts in the state and other community groups. And then the Office of Suicide Prevention is a major partner, which you'll hear a little bit more from Misty about. The main grant priorities of the grant, as I mentioned before, is just increasing the overall literacy and awareness of mental health issues among school-age students. We do this through providing training for the adults that are in the children's lives. So our students, teachers, and our students' parents, and those who are working with students, but also empowering them to support one another is another big thing that we're talking about and looking at. We're trying to also connect youth and families to mental health services. And so often, almost every meeting that we're in, we talk about the shortage and the lack of capacity in our community. And what do we do about this situation? And how do we address that situation? And so what Project Aware does is it develops that state and local infrastructure to expand and sustain what we have for MTSS. And many of you are familiar with a multi-tiered system of support, which is a framework where students can receive very individualized supports as well as supports, access to supports universally. So they have universal selected and indicated supports at each of different tiered levels. And many of you are in your disciplines are familiar with that. It looks at both academic and behavior and mental health supports. And it's a framework that Washoe County School District has been using for quite some time. And it really meets the needs of the whole child. So one of my colleagues that I get to work with quite a bit developed this in her presentation. Jacqueline Kleinfelder was presenting information to the Children's Cabinet's Board of Directors, and she was talking about the membership of different groups and what you need when.
On Thursday, March 10th. Thank you.
Yeah. That's this is one of the Zoom things. So when Jacqueline was presenting this, she was referring to how the cabinet was reaching students and staff in our community overall related to suicide prevention, intervention, and screening. But it's such a great analogy that every time I show it to someone, we talk about the different areas, the routine maintenance, the scheduled maintenance, the roadside emergency, and when I need an expert. It helps define who and which licenses and what you need when. But we also can look at our district and divide it up in sections. And I was talking a little bit with Betsy about this today too, and some other social work and counseling colleagues. And it just seems to make so much sense to us. So in Washoe County Schools District, when we talk about roadside maintenance, we're talking about the training of teachers and parents. We're talking about social emotional learning. We're building that capacity. We're looking at positive behavioral supports and things like psychological first aid. When we talk about scheduled maintenance, and that would be like an oil change or wiper blades or new tires, then we're talking about things like individual counseling, guidance, and support. Maybe our MTSS infrastructure and components of check-in, check-out would be there. Then when we look at roadside emergencies or fixing a flat tire, then we would pull in the school mental health team. We talk about some family resource centers. Roadside emergency would be when you would need your family resource center to provide some stability to a family. And so they would have a role here. And I talked to Rochelle Murillo about that. And it might be a place where you're doing some individual and group counseling through counselors or social workers or school psychologists. And then finally we have, I need an expert. And that's when we pull in our most licensed individuals or someone with some very specialized training. And that would be like Dr. Sexton or some of our contracted providers in our community or our licensed clinical social worker and some of our other community partners. Or it might be when we have crisis staff as well. I'm going to turn it over to Tracy Sergioli now, our licensed clinical social worker for Project Aware.
First, I just want to say thank you so much, Catherine, for giving me the opportunity to come and talk about this today. I love to talk about Project Aware, and so I'm very excited to get to share information about our project. I'm going to speak primarily about our Tier 3 systems and what we're doing, but that's going to naturally involve a little bit of Tier 2 and MTSS and kind of the structures we're putting in place to support Tier 3. And I will talk a bit about training and about our data collection as well. First, let's take a look at our schools. We have 7 pilot schools. We have 1 high school, Damani, 2 middle schools, Vaughn and Traynor, and then we have 4 elementary schools, so Duncan, Lemon Valley, Smithridge, and Stead. And as we're getting traction with this project, we've got, kind of different levels of different things going on at the different schools. But it's underway and it's very exciting. So at the Tier 3 level, I'll talk about training in just a minute. At the Tier 3 level, as Catherine mentioned, we have the MTSS system that works well with academics and with behavior. We're now wanting to integrate mental health services into the Tier 3 process, or into the tier process. So looking at how do we enhance our Tier 1 strategies at our schools, our SEL programs and PBIS, things like that, where can Project Aware come in and help to strengthen what's already being done out there. And then for those kids who seem to need a little more support, that Tier 1's not quite enough for what they're needing, we can refer them into Tier 2, right? So that may be small group, check in, check out, those sorts of things. And then for those few kids who sort of move out of that section and still need a little more support, we can move them into Tier 3, which is therapy and some case management. Those are our Tier 3 things that we're looking at right now. But in order to be able to do this really well through MTSS, we're also looking at how do we make these referrals, based on what criteria, and what interventions do we have in our intervention bank, so that we say, okay, this is a child identified who needs some Tier 2 services for X, what do we have? And we can go and look at it, much like we do for academics. So that's kind of the infrastructure piece that we're really going to move into working towards next year. Meanwhile, for our current Tier 3 services, we have a licensed clinical social worker who goes into a couple of schools. I'm working at Smithridge instead and providing therapy to children there. And then in our other schools, we have contracts with outside mental health providers who are going in and providing some therapy for us in other locations. Also next year we have case management on our radar. That's another thing that we want to start looking at, because not all the kids that get referred to a Tier 3 level are therapy kids. They need other things. Their families need other things. So we also want to be able to make sure we can really wrap around those kids and help their families with whatever those things are that they're needing. So that's where we're headed, and it's very, very exciting and so needed, and I'm really biased about that. Okay, so that's what we're doing at Tier 3. The training piece here, as Catherine mentioned, increasing literacy around mental health is a big part of what we're trying to do with kids, with staff, and with families. So we're looking at a wide range of training opportunities. We've done some youth mental health first aid through Children's Cabinet. That's one of our partners, and we want to continue to offer that to our staff, and we're looking at some ways to do that more efficiently. I mentioned we're going to be looking into case management more this coming year. We actually just brought on a new social worker who's going to be working on our team as well, and we're looking to her to kind of run with that. And of course, we're working with the Office of Suicide Prevention and Misty around suicide prevention, and we're actually right in the middle of figuring out, okay, what are the trainings we need and how are we going to move forward with that? And we're also really keeping it fluid because we know we're in year 2, we have 3 more years, and we know other things are going to come up, so we want to be ready to respond to those training needs. Would you do the next one, please? Thank you. Okay, somebody's got to hold us accountable for all of this stuff, and as it turns out, there are many things in place to do just that. I have to refer to my little acronym list here because all of these acronyms up here is a lot. So we have AIR at the federal level, which is the American Institute for Research. They are our evaluators at the federal level for Project AWARE, and then also another CDC program that we have going. But we have to report back to them every quarter. Actually, it's changing now to every month. It was every quarter. It's going to switch to every month. About those big overarching goals that Catherine identified at the beginning. So what are we doing for trainings? Who's getting trained? Are we making any impacts with our policy? Who are the partners that we have, the MOUs that we've got in place? And then exactly what are we doing for our Tier 2 and Tier 3 services? So not only what are they, but how many kids and families, where appropriate, are we moving into those different levels of services? We are also part of the SHAPE system and COIN, which I'll explain. It's all tied to the University of Maryland Center for School Mental Health. And the SHAPE program is the School Health Assessment and Performance Evaluation System. So what that has allowed us to do is take a look at our overall mental health scores across the district. And it can be done for any level. It can be done for a group of schools, the whole district, one single school. But it really lets us see where we're doing things really well and then where we need to make some changes and improve things. So we're participating in that. In fact, we're right now redoing our questionnaires again to see where we're at. And then COIN is a related process that allows us to take the areas where we need to improve and break them down into small little bite-sized pieces and be accountable to the other people in our COIN, Collaborative Improvement and Innovation Network on School-Based Mental Health. So to hold, I know I'm never going to remember that, to hold ourselves accountable to our other people that we're collaborating with. And they have a plan, do, study, act model, which actually is really helpful. It's really helpful. Imagine that. So that's another way that we are being accountable to all of the goals that we are trying to reach. All right, would you move to the next one? Okay, so now I'm going to turn it over to the Office of Suicide Prevention to talk about some of the things they're doing.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Shannon Decker, and I am the statewide Youth Suicide Prevention Coordinator. And with me, I have Emma. Emma, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, my name is Emma White, and I'm the Safe Messaging Specialist for Project AWARE and the Office of Suicide Prevention.
All right, awesome. So we are excited to partner with Washoe County. A couple of things that we have going on. Right now, we are working to deploy a workforce survey to create that training plan, to identify what's already taken place, where are the gaps and the needs so that we can help build those in and create that universal tier 1, training for staff, for students, for families, and then to identify what additional tiers of training are needed. And Emma has joined us recently. She came on last month, and so she's kind of that expert with youth voice and families. So we will be identifying ways that we can create some focus groups or to we know that there's already work that's taking place where youth are at the table. And so tapping into that to make sure that youth voice is guiding the work that we do. Really working to stand up that mental health literacy with some additional activities, such as virtual film screenings and panel discussions, webinars that are pertinent to youth, to families, and to educators. Finding ways where we can just join in the efforts that are already underway in various avenues within Washoe County and other state activities. We'll be working to design an awareness campaign. That's where a lot of that youth voice will come to the table. And then using our expertise in safe messaging as the need arises, excuse me. Last month, we had a couple activities that were taking place. There was a local play, and there was a film that was being promoted. And so we were able to work with the filmmaker and with the theater company to create safe messaging and to just be able to provide some resources to go hand in hand with that. So we're looking for more opportunities to help supplement and support Washoe County as needed. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Thank you so much, Shannon. Thank you, Catherine and Tracy. I really appreciate this. This came out of our presentation last month around our family support conversation, and it brought some questions to my mind. How it can be scary to have these conversations around suicide, especially. And what you presented today really explains that it's a continuum. And it really reinforces what the Office of Suicide Prevention does. We believe suicide prevention is everyone's business. But everyone has a different level, like you mentioned, with the maintenance or the expert. And I think that Project Aware's role is to increase that understanding. So I open it up to questions from the commission or virtual. Commissioner Bybee.
Thank you for the presentation. Obviously, one of the most critical issues facing our communities, our schools, our kids, our families, but our cities, our state, our mental health, and also the suicide piece. And the youth suicide for me is especially just right at the front of my mind because of recent suicides we've had, and because it's just suicide is such a taboo, I think most of us can probably say we've been touched by suicide, whether it was a friend, a family member, that we know someone who has taken their life, and we know, they say it leaves more victims than it takes, and it does. So suicide has always been a tough subject that has been taboo. Mental health too. Those taboo subjects. And I think really the more we can do in our community, and I love this Project Aware, how do we increase that awareness? How do we increase the conversations? How do we, because I'm not an expert. We got a lot of people on this panel, more and more, that are mental health experts, and I'm not. I'm a mom, I'm not just a community leader, so I have two boys, I've got two grandkids, but as a community and looking at the impacts both these subjects have on our whole community is something all of us, everyone needs to buy into. And I applaud this project and where you're going with that, and I just don't think we can talk enough about it. I don't think we can do enough, and I'm glad the collaborative effort, because you have from Children's Cabinet to the, Misty's office, to the school district, to private counseling services, to other nonprofits. Forever 14, is one that's near and dear to my heart. So really, everyone working together for the same outcomes, I think, is critical, that we aren't in silos and that we aren't silent. So I think moving forward, I'm encouraged, and I think the louder we speak and the more we speak, we can make a difference in our community. And I applaud what you were doing. I'm very, I didn't know anything about Project Aware. Now I do. I'm kind of looking for how we can continue expanding information and services and just conversations with families, conversations with kids, making them feel safe from the child assault prevention to this piece can make a difference, and I think will make a difference. But we've got to continue moving forward and amping it up even more. And thank you for all the work that you do.
Yes.
Thanks, Vice Chair. I just wanted to say really quickly, I love your guys' office. It's, as a community provider for 2 of these schools on this list, it's just been so great to work with you all and to be able to provide some of these services. You've made it very easy. And I've just had such great feedback from parents who say things like, this is just such a wonderful program, and now they get to access services that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to have access to, and so that really does make such a huge difference. So yeah, thank you guys for all of that.
Thank you, Commissioner Sanchez. Anyone on virtual? Oh,
Hi, Missy. It's
Chair Benton. Hi, Scott. I couldn't see the hand. Please go ahead.
Yes. Thank you for the presentation, Catherine and Tracy and the Office of Suicide Prevention. The question that I have is, I think I heard 6,000 students are being reached, maybe in Catherine's presentation. Is there a capacity that we can reach more, or is it just based on where events are occurring and the need to minimize the events after a tragic event?
Thank you, Commissioner Benton. Thank you so much for being on the call today. So the 6,000 students that were reached with child assault prevention, we have about 5,000 students per grade level. And so as child assault prevention moves through the spring semester, they're going to go to all 63 of our elementary schools to provide child assault prevention. And then separate and apart from that, in Project Aware, we have our 7 targeted schools. But in addition to what we're providing for those 7 schools, we also have other things that fit together with this. So, for example, the Signs of Suicide program that you've seen presented that reaches all 7th grade students, which is another 5,000 students in Washoe County School District. And then our Living Ideation workshops for parents and staff, which is a part of another project. And then we're collaborating with the Office of Suicide Prevention on looking into the tools that we have that we implement in our ability to try to connect our families to some of our community support, and then also addressing peers. And then we have several community providers that are offered through different offices as well, and our community schools initiatives and projects. So we look at all of our schools, elementary, middle, and high school, and we look at suicide prevention comprehensively, beginning at that universal level, at the elementary level, looking at what we're doing with social emotional learning, and then talking about how all of this is interconnected. And we make sure that we are always following the Office of Suicide Prevention's comprehensive plan and seeing where our stuff all fits in so that all schools can make sure that they have access and just continually improving. So I think a lot of people, when they look at our district, we have a very large district with 64,000 kids, and we want to make sure that our prevention, intervention, and really postvention is all in line with what is absolutely the best that we can offer. And so the conversations with the experts that are here today for us is what we use. The collaboration that we're doing with Betsy Sexton and her office and school psychology, with what's happening with school social work, with MTSS and social emotional learning. When we all get together, that's when we really align and collaborate that work so that we make sure that all of our kids have that support.
Yes, please, Dr. Lamarca.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for clarifying and expanding on that. And then also, I really wanted to congratulate all of you guys on a job well done. I think heading into what sounds like a great planning session for some training for those that are involved in the school district, really speaks to the volume that you just spoke about, Catherine, that everybody's aligning, everybody's collaborating, and that, I think it makes this topic less taboo if we're all at the table bringing our different viewpoints and everybody's getting training at different levels for their comfort level. So thank you for mentioning that as well.
Thank you. I just wanted to elaborate a little bit on what Catherine was saying. If the commission recalls, I think it was probably November, you received a presentation from the Connect Washoe Community Group as well. That's a project that was sort of started by Renown and Children's Cabinet as their primary sort of partner, along with Office of Suicide Prevention and the Washoe County School District. That group put together a registry that's now live, and there's not enough folks that are part of the registry yet. But there are a lot of community resources, in helping families identify those when necessary is sort of a critical role that we can play. I do think, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, Misty, but when the Family School Partnerships Group presented, there seemed to be some reluctance about sharing information at times because of a perceived or real lack of resource in the community. So you share information and then people don't have an outlet. And clearly we have to identify, and that's part of that project as well, identify gaps in services, especially for marginalized populations or traditionally marginalized populations. But we can't not talk about it. That's not really something that we can do. And I do think, and Catherine, I appreciate that she brought that kind of, that analogy for us, where there's so much that we can do along the way, and mental health is not just designated to these, experts with white jackets and have you lay on the couch. That's not what it's all about. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Dr. Lamarca. You articulated it so much better than I, but that's exactly the point I think I was making. And I look forward to Project Aware, and I'm really proud of my OSP team with the expertise they bring and reaching families in a way we haven't in the past is what I really look forward to. So are there any other questions from the Commission? Thank you both so much. It's always a pleasure working with you. And thank you, Dr. Lamarca, for clarifying that. I do encourage everyone to go to the Washoe County Children's Mental Health Consortium. They do have that directory of service providers, and definitely it needs everyone and anyone who might be a support to our Washoe County families. Okay. We're going to move on to 2.05, discussion and possible action to determine content, logistics, and marketing for the annual 2022 Safety Forum. Chairman Benton, are you able to present on this? I know you're on the road.
I am, and for some reason the service keeps going in and out. So if I can defer to you, Misty, that would be great.
Unfortunately, I do not have the notes from last presentation and where we stand. I know Megan's in the audience. Do you have any updates, Megan? Oh, okay. So the questions will work. We did get quite a bit done last meeting, and I think we just needed to clarify a timeline in marketing.
Great, yes, and I wasn't here last meeting. Megan Downs, Communications Manager, for the record. Yes, I was able to review last month's meeting, in which I believe the commission agreed it would be offered the 3 separate times. So, and you agreed to an hour and 15 minutes. So I'd really like to nail down the exact times, like if we're doing 8 to 9:15 or whatever it is you'd like to see. And then I believe the 4 subjects were selected. There was some discussion on the experts that you'd like to see there, but would like to identify perhaps a point person that could work with us on marketing efforts, just so that we can finalize those details, such as what promotional materials look like, our further marketing efforts, and then really the logistics. If you remember last time, we had a moderator as part of each section of the panel, if you will. So if we can work on identifying that, or again, finding a point person that would help finalize that, that would be excellent.
Thank you, Megan. You've always been so great to work with on this. So I will throw that back out to the commissioners. Yes, we did pick the topics. I know Chair Benton is kind of the lead on this, but I am more than willing to work with you again. The one piece we were missing from last year was the evaluation component, so I wanted to just hopefully build that one into this presentation. But did we have a preference on when to build in the hour and 15-minute segments? Any thoughts from the commission?
My thought would be to use the same start times as we did last year and just allow them to go 15 minutes past the end time that we had. So I think we did 7, noon, and 5. If I remember correctly, 7 a.m., noon, and then 5 p.m.
Yes, we did. Thank you, Chair Benton. Any discussion on that? Okay, I will accept an emotion. It's my business, right? I will accept a motion on having 3 times, the same start times as before, one from 7 to 8:15, one from noon to 1:15, and one from 5 to 6:15. Is there a motion?
I will make that motion.
Chair Benton makes an motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion. Commissioner Bybee.
All in favor, please say yes. Oh, is there public comment?
No, there is no public comment.
Thank you, America. And then I will take a motion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. There is a reason Scott's the chair and I'm the vice chair. The other piece was moderators. Are there any thoughts on that? I know we had some bumps at the first one, but we smoothed it out. I think it was a really important piece for safety to monitor the chat. But this year we talked about removing the chat, I believe.
I don't know if I had that finalized either, but if that's the case, that's absolutely fine. We can take that away. The question would be then how to facilitate questions. We have some email addresses we could use for that are sort of generic, like questions@washoeschools.net. So we're happy to do that and facilitate that through our staffing. It's just the will of the commission.
Thank you, Megan. Any discussion on how to moderate and handle the questions from audience? I remember last year we did not have much discussion because of time frames, so the extra 15 minutes was put into that. Do we want to keep the chat open for discussion? Chair Benton, do you have a comment?
I do. I like the idea of having moderators as it allows the commission, the state school commission, to be involved. So, the commitment that they make. That was a way to.
Chair Benton, you're breaking up quite a bit.
We were doing. I know it was virtual, but okay. Maybe I'll text.
We can't text on open meeting. Do you want to try one more time? No, I think we lost him. What I think I heard him say was he likes the idea of having a moderator because we could bring in community members aside from the commission as partners in that. Is that what I heard correctly? And then I personally like the discussion in the chat, and the moderator can look at that, but I don't know if I'm recalling that we wanted to remove that or mixing up meetings. I could be mixing up meetings.
I think, because I think I moderated one. In fact, I know I did at 7 a.m., and I am not a morning person. It's the only time I had available that day. So I do remember moderating at 7 a.m. And I like having a moderator there because you can be watching. Are we going to do that with the chat box so that people are typing in their questions?
I think that is the question we want to confirm.
That seems to be in most of the Zoom, and how many hundreds of Zooms have we been on? That seems to be more efficient because it's tough if you've got people raising their hand and speaking or talking over each other. It kind of being, if you've got typed in comments on the chat, it seems to be a little bit easier to keep it moving. And also sometimes the moderator can be watching and 2 people could ask basically the same question, and then you're not being repetitive. So I think it helped because obviously the time crunch, I mean, there wasn't enough time to really, as much time as we wanted, but people don't have a lot of time. So what can we most efficiently do in the time frame that we've been given? And I think I did like the moderator and the fact the moderator would be reading typed in comments in the chat. And then if there were comments afterwards, I think those were answered. Staff or someone took the questions out of the chat and made sure that we had those either publicly. I think communications might have responded so that people could go find out that information if we didn't answer the question.
Yes, correct. And our staff will continue to be, let's say, back-end moderators, if you will, to handle those sort of things or any technical glitches or those type of questions.
Great, thank you. So if there's a motion that we keep the 5 minutes and have the chat open, I do remember you were my moderator when I presented on suicide prevention. And it's very nice, especially with a topic like suicide, to have safety and someone watching faces as well as the chat. So are there any concerns with having that format? I keep looking at you, Deborah. Is that Commissioner Flores? Do you have a comment?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay, thank you. It's hard to tell. And Dr. LaMarca, did you have any thoughts to add? Okay, then I will accept a motion to work with the 15 minutes open chat and a moderator from the commission working with the community partners. So is that separate from what we did? Yes.
I move to have moderators for each of the sessions during the 15-minute chat time, and that's all you need, right?
So I'm thinking we have a moderator for the entire 75 minutes,
Yes.
but monitoring the chat for the end for questions.
Right. So the moderators would be there for each full session, and the last 15 minutes are going to be but obviously people can enter the chat at any time during, but we would address those questions at the end, correct? The 15 minutes. So 15-minute chat at the end, coordinated or facilitated by the moderator.
Thank you. America, does that work for you as a motion? Is there a second?
Commissioner Sanchez for the second.
Is there public comment? Seeing none, I'll take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
There is no public comment.
I thought I had it that time.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. So I will volunteer to work with Chair Benton and Megan on marketing and solidifying our agenda for the next meeting.
Great, wonderful.
Thank you
you
for
all.
being here,
Appreciate
Megan.
it. Bye.
Okay, I am thinking we are at the closing items, 3.01, public comment. Is there any additional public comment?
There was one public comment received from Joe Morabito.
And that we leave in the email? It was provided in the commissioner packet.
Yes, it was provided in the packet.
Thank you, America. Next item, 3.02. Next meeting is April 4th, 2022, here in the boardroom at 425 East 9th Street. 2 p.m.? Yes, 2 p.m. until adjourned. Thank you for clarifying that, Commissioner Bybee. And finally, if there are no other points of business, we will adjourn the meeting. We will adjourn the meeting at, I cannot see the time, 3:16. Thank you, everyone.